Good to go?
Yep. Do you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. Well, I have a couple on the call, but thank you for the couple that did make it. Hopefully we have a couple more roll in here shortly. My name is Matt Souza, and I am the TechSoup chapter lead for Chicago, Illinois. And today, Gregory is going to be doing a webinar on the power of Canva. Gregory's with eGuide Tech Allies, but I'll let him tell more about himself. But I'll turn it over to you, Gregory.
Awesome. Yep, and hopefully with the recording, this will make it to a few extra people as well. But eGuide works with specifically emerging small businesses and self-funded nonprofit organizations. So generally speaking, it's that level of business and nonprofit that can't afford the use of a graphic designer for everything that goes into running a small but mighty organization. So we are an extension of their capabilities as an organization, both in the design and the technology space. So I would say we are probably making upwards to 10 to 20 different graphics and designs in Canva on a daily basis. I think if you haven't been tracking the developments in Canva this year, a lot of what has been emerging is the use of AI and how that applies to some of these visual-based platforms versus just the text-based platforms like ChatGPT. And I think it was this past August that Canva rolled out a ton of what they are calling their quote unquote magic tools. So that's everything from being able to manipulate backgrounds, adjust images through the use of AI, change and modify images, but there's tons of other details that we'll kind of cover today as well that give you the ability to just work in a more efficient realm. I will preface this by saying that a true graphic designer at points of what we are covering today would probably, squirm in their seat a little bit, because everything that we are focusing on is that efficiency aspect. There is a use case for a graphic design or a brand specialist for any organization at any point in time, but all of that obviously comes with a price tag. So the way that I like to think of Canva, especially from a starting point, is if you can use the tools at your that you have available to you to extend the idea of what you see in your head to a designer to then take over the rest of the way, it is worth the added effort and will save the organization money. And if you have a true brand kit where you've maybe invested in the designer on the onset, but you need quick designs for social media or flyers or things like that, then putting that into a tool like Canva to generate that quick content more quickly is also another realm to take in this. So what are we going to cover for the next hour together? I thought, as I was conceptualizing this presentation, what better way to showcase some of these tools than to literally start from a blank canvas. So this is where I want to start this journey. This is a blank canvas. We're going to work on creating a concept of a logo, establishing brand standards, deploying a brand kit, and manipulating that brand kit and logo into designs for social media and flyers. Now, this punch list sounds like what could be a lot of hours, and we're going to try to move all of this into as much as we can concept in an hour's time, or less than an hour, 52 minutes of time together. And I think what you will be able to see as we go through this journey is some of the pace and efficiency that's created through the use of some of these magic tools as we start. So feel free to chime in. I will put the chat up. I think we're a small enough group that you're welcome to use the chat for any questions as you are going through. I'll try to keep an eye on. And Matt, if you can keep a tab, feel free to chime in and stop me if there's a question that we haven't gotten to as well. Would love for this to be interactive. If you want to chime in on the chat of like what your comfortability level is with Canva, it's great to see we have some 6s and 7s out there. So we're not starting from net new, but hopefully you're picking up a few of the magic tools and how to deploy those in a use case as we're going through this as well. All right, so just so everyone knows, this is actually one of the newer features of Canva as well, is that they just deployed their tool called a whiteboard in the not so distant past. And what this allows us to do is actually create a workspace where we're at 240% Zoom right now. We can go all the way back to 1% where we don't even see anything. So this really is a great concept to explore and ideate together. You can have multiple collaborators on this. It is a true like collaborative whiteboard tool. So if you've used platforms like Melio or I think is one, Lucid Spark is another, it's basically this in Canva as well. So if you're paying for a pro license and you're doing something visual with graphics, it has all of the Canva tools attached to it so that you can really start to collaborate in the same environment and go as big as you need to go. So we're using this right now to deploy a new brand concept, and the fact that we can just continue to extend is great. What else is nice about this is over here in our templates, a great starting line for where we are going with today's workshop is starting with that brand identity. So right here in the templates, we're seeing that we have this brand identity tool. And if I click on this, it adds into my whiteboard a lot of these elements, which could be perceived as a slide deck, but this is a great starting base for us to start to workshop some of what we are trying to accomplish. So a blog or a logo, a brand design, all of that goes into this as well. So if you haven't used, I'm assuming if you're a 6 or 7 of comfortability, you're familiar with the concept of frames. So one thing I'm going to go through here and do is tweak some of these templates that are coming into the mix. And as I'm deleting these images out, we're seeing that the image of clouds is behind the scenes. And what's nice about these tools is that frames come in different shapes and sizes, but we are able to take any graphic at any point and put that into let's see, if we have a picture, let's do a photo of a dog. That'll make more sense in just a minute. This cute little puppy goes right here, right? So basically what this video or graphic is doing is filling the space and cropping to the size of that frame. And you are able to delete and modify those as many times as you need. So deploying that as an element of design throughout all of your Canva designs is a great tool to make static templates that you can just swap in pictures for, and it takes on and inherits some of that dimension of that frame. So let's start to take a look at this first step, which is a logo of any brand. Our use case, let's pretend together that we are helping a new nonprofit called the Tails Adoption Center for pets that are displaced. So the whole mission of the organization is to take any displaced pet and find its forever home. So because the name of that organization is Tails, the first thing that I'm going to start to do as we start to ideate on ideas is take a look at my elements here, and let's go with pet tail. You can see in my research that there was a graphic there that I kind of liked before, but as I am searching the database, we're seeing different elements pop up in the realm of graphics, photos, videos, shapes, so on and so forth up at the top, right? And we're seeing something worth noting is that if there is this little crown icon, it is a pro element. So you do have to have that premium version of Canva to access those assets. And one thing that I like to turn small businesses and small nonprofit organizations onto is one license goes a long way. So don't think you have to deploy it for everyone on your team. If you link that to a shared username and password, Canva currently will allow you to log in with multiple devices into the same account and manipulate things simultaneously without kicking you out. Now it's like the Netflix effect of how long is that going to last for us, TBD, but at least for right now, it's a great way to say we're gonna spring for one Canva premium account and share some of those credentials so everyone can use those premium features. If we take a look at these graphics, let's see of the different pet tails that come up, right? This is too cartoony for a logo, but the one that kind of caught my attention earlier today as I was concepting this direction is this graphic right here. It's kind of a brushstroke take, right? We have some elements. And the nice thing about these graphics and just what I'm showing you here is that in this whiteboard, we can make it as big or as small. And this means that this is a vector graphic as well. So that sizability does matter as you're working in different designs in Canva. So being able to make those graphics as large or as small comes from this being a vector graphic. So this is always a great place to start. Now, one thing that I don't love as I'm looking at this is that, yes, I see what this designer was looking at, that these horizontal lines create motion as if this pet's tail is wagging, but I want to get rid of those. Let's say we want to manipulate this design, right? So one thing that isn't fully worked out as of yet is that in order to export a single graphic, we have to basically combine it with another graphic. So I'm just going to take this square and put it behind this graphic. And the reason I am doing that is that now when I select both of these elements, I can right-click and download this selection. So when you're working within a whiteboard, you might want to just download this slide, right? So this means at any point, as long as you are selecting more than one item, you can right-click and download that selection. So even if you had some quote unquote finalized graphics in this whiteboard concept, you're able to take pieces and snippets of that as you go. So another quick shortcut tool, the command, and then it's your bracket icon up above your return or control in the bracket icon will rearrange or relayer these elements on top of each other. So if I make this a solid color again, you're going to be able to see that when I bring this to the forefront, and that's using this bracket to bring it closer to the screen, or your other bracket to move it backwards, we're rearranging those layers. Now I want this still to be transparent. So this is why I am making this box transparent. I'm able to select both of these and I'm able to download that selection. This selection bar pops up and I'm able to export this as a PNG. And this is an important tool that we can adjust that size as big or as small as we want it to. Because this is a vector-based image, it's going to download in a high resolution at any of those sizes. I'm going to click the transparent background so I don't get that white box behind it, and I'm going to download this. Now you might be asking yourself, it's right here on the screen, why can't you just manipulate it from here? Well, because this is a graphic and not an image, when I click on my edit image item up here, I'm getting some capabilities to adjust this, but I'm not getting all of those quote unquote magic tools that Canva has at our disposal. However, when I re-add this image as an actual image instead of a graphic, I am able to click on that edit photo, and now I get all of my Magic Studio elements. So this is a great tip of if you are trying to modify some of the graphics within Canva, download them as PNGs, re-upload them to your design, and you can start to manipulate that, right? So let's take a look, let's zoom in a little bit more, and say our goal is to remove these horizontal lines. Part of the Magic Suite is called this Magic Eraser. When I click on the Magic Eraser, what I'm going to do is highlight that full horizontal line. And lo and behold, it got rid of more than I was hoping for. So let's try that again. Let's reset tools. Great. Let's make our brush size a little bit smaller. And let's go with that one more time. What I'm hoping is that it's going to keep the top, but just delete the line. And we can play with this a little bit more. Let's try this one down here. Great. We can refill in some of this empty space that it's creating, but it is getting rid of that horizontal line throughout and allowing us just to see this graphic. So this is a great way to remove objects from different images. And then you might have to work at it and manipulate it a little bit. Let me make it even bigger and see what happens on the other side of this. So let's go too large. And what happens when I highlight this? Is it going to remove everything? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. It does. But either way, let's let me remove as much as we can of that, of these vertical lines. We can also go where it's just this part. And what this is doing, the AI behind the scenes is basically taking this and saying, we are recognizing other elements in your design, and we are just removing what we think you want to be removed. So it does require a bit of trial and error, but we can get it to be closer to what we are looking for by using this magic editor. This also works for true photo images. So something like, say, we have a picture of a table with a stapler on it, and that stapler is a bright color that doesn't go with the rest of our design. You can use this magic eraser, and it will take the background of your image and basically transform that into the edit that it's making. So it'll just remove the stapler. Last one here. And we could workshop this a little bit more to get this more fine-tuned, but it's doing exactly what I'm hoping it is doing by removing this horizontal line on the image and still leaving us with the transparent background. Right? Cool. As soon as we press save, this update is going to go back into our design, and then we'll be able to start to continue to modify that from the editor. Awesome. Good enough for the sake of today. If I was working on this design, I would spend a little bit more time on it, but in a broad stroke, it's getting us to where we need to go. Let's say this is our logo mark that we are considering, and we need to consider a color palette. So this is where my friend Pinterest always is a great spot to start. And if we go onto Pinterest and we say, animal rescue color scheme. You get a variety of options to consider here. I like this blue and yellow and orange combination here. So let's take a look at this. And one thing I'm going to do is just take a screenshot from Pinterest. I don't know if you've experienced this, but anytime you click on one of these, it's going to take you to that location. It's sometimes near impossible to find what you were looking for. But if we take that screenshot and then just add that into our canvas here, we have this image ready for us to start to play with, right? One thing that Canva automatically does behind the scenes is it will take a graphic or image that you have in your design. Keep in mind, we have a lot going on here, so it's not specifically seeing this one in the top 3, but we are able to press See All, and right down here, it is pulling those colors from any of the graphics or images that we have in our design already. If we don't love the hues that it's pulling, we have the ability then to use the eyedropper, just like we would in some other platforms, where we can define that color by just pulling that off of there. So let's call that our yellow. Let's call this that light blue. Let's call this our dark blue. And we'll put in that grayish tone here as well. Right? What it's showing you here in the template is that if you were collaborating on this, people can add other graphics to express interest. So this is maybe the color scheme that everyone votes on. So you're able to use that as that whiteboard tool as well. We now can get rid of all of these other colors. Another quick and handy tip is if you hold down the shift, that allows you to select multiple elements. We can see that these elements are grouped together. And if we ungroup them, obviously they fall into all individual boxes, but we don't need any of that, so we can delete that as of now. To this, I'm going to actually ungroup our selection here, and I'm going to add in a light and a dark. So let's identify the brightest we want to go is in the gray scheme, but not truly white. And as dark as we want to go is, let's say, darker than this blue, but not all the way to black. Right there. Swap these guys. Let's go back to our blue that we chose before. just for the sake of time. It's staring me in the face. There we go. So now we have a full color scheme. Let's say we want to express some hierarchy in our color scheme here. I'm just going to drag all of these circles over to one side and start to play with some squares. There's a square over here. Copy and pasting elements as you're working in design is a great time saver. This, although it's a text box, is now just a square without text. And then here I'm seeing all of my other colors that I've chosen. So we want to make that, let's say this navy, our primary, and then we'll express some hierarchy in its design by creating some smaller squares over here. This becomes our yellow, just making sure that it's the yellow that I've selected by selecting on this circle, and that light blue down here. Not quite. There we go. We'll make these a little bit larger. This will be our 3 primary colors, and then we're going to create a third tier in this with our accent color, which is going to be that blue right here, and then our not quite white, not quite black right here, and here. Great. So now we have our full color scheme ready to go. We have a logo concept here. Let's start to talk a little bit about font. So one inspiration site as you're considering kind of your brand might be a local organization like Pause. So if we pull up the Pause website, this is a great way to draw in inspiration, things that you can recreate as you are concepting your brand. And one thing that we are seeing here is they're doing some cutout graphics. We have those accent colors throughout. As we scroll down, we're seeing some full bleed images over here. We're seeing their color scheme is this gray and teal and this golden hue. And then if we take a look at their fonts, their primary font is a serif font in all caps. And then their secondary font is a sans serif font. So say we like the look and the aesthetic of this, and we want to consider something like that in our design. So if we go in here, we kind of have a font already in this that is a serif font. It's not all caps, but let's go into searching for some fonts here that might be more traditional. And we get some examples down here. Let's take a look at serif fonts. And we have a bunch of selections here. So serif, sans serif are your friends when you're searching fonts. That will give you a lot of options to choose from. Let's say we wanted something quote unquote more decorative. Using this search functionality to consider fonts gives you, makes more efficiency in the process, so you don't have to scroll down and try 8,000 things. It's just limiting your purview and giving you less to choose from. So I like the serif direction. And let's take a look at, this one is kind of overly ornate, maybe too much for us to consider. This is seeming a little bit squished together. This kind of has a fun, almost typewriter view on it. And if we make this all, I like how that I and the end interact with each other, and this N and the T interact with each other. So let's go with this one. And that alternative font, I will say that Montserrat is one of my favorite sans serif fonts. It's really easy to read. So I'm gonna keep that one as is. And we're getting this here. This is being used for header. And then since we've used this prior, it's going to show up in our recently used fonts here that we can see that, what was it called? That droid serif recent searches. Let's just do that. Sometimes they pop up right there underneath there, but we want to make that all the same font down here, and we're good. Now let's go into another magic tool, which is the magic write tool. And this is behind the scenes pretty much powered by ChatGPT. So you're kind of doing the same thing here, where you are prompting or starting to write something, and then you're continuing the content based on AI or generative tools. So let's say, let's start to type our mission here. Our mission, Tails Adoption Center mission is to ensure that any displaced pet finds a forever home. Nice little statement here, right? Let's select this. In our magic write tool, we have some options beneath here. Continue writing, summarize, rewrite this, have more fun, make it more formal, or sprinkle a little fairy dust. Let's see what happens when I click continue writing. This is going to take a second because it's basically prompting ChatGPT behind the scenes with a take this content and add more to it prompt. And if we make this a little bit more manageable, we now have, we believe that every animal deserves a loving and caring home, and it's our goal to make that happen. We work hard to provide a safe and comfortable environment for each animal in our care, and we strive to match them with a perfect family. Plenty to start to work from the concepting phase with a click of a button. So don't be shy with writing something to start and using that magic write tool to modify it or enhance it in some way, shape, or form. And that lives in any text box throughout Canva now using these magic tools. We don't need this sample text down here. I'm good to do away with that. Good to go, right? So we have a little, we now have our fonts established. We have our type application. We have a logo concept that's in the works here. So let's start to solidify some of the direction of where we want to head. So say we need a logo that works both horizontally and vertically. One thing worth considering maybe is a circle to put this in. So over here in my image library, I'm going to search in our graphics a rope circle. Some options pop up. I want to maybe find one that has a look and feel that resonates a bit with our logo design. So maybe simpler by nature is better. Let's add this guy in. We have some line work there. Let's make it a little bit larger. We'll get into coloring this as well. I'm doing that command. I'm relayering those objects. Here's our tail. Now that we have our fonts established, let's maybe add a little text to this. One thing we will get to after we conceptualize this is you're seeing at the top of the screen here different brand kits. And this is where we will head with this after we solidify it, because that brand kit allows you to recall any of your brand standards in any design that you are doing, which is huge. So let's, for now, just add that text. We'll put it to the top here. And if we take a look at our effects, there is a curved effect right here. And we can modify the amount of curvature that we are applying to that logo. So let's center this within our other circle. Let's make it our droid serif, which is right there. And we are going to say tails. Let's make it a bit larger so it fills up the rest of this space. And then same thing down below. Instead of the curve going up now, we are going to make the curve go backwards, right? So we're going on the opposite end of the spectrum. And we can try to match those. This is 52 on the positive. Let's just make that a round number, call it 50. And we'll do 50 on this side in the negative. And then this is going to be our Montserrat. This has a shadow effect on it now. We don't need that. And this is Adoption Center. We're gonna make this smaller so it fits on one line. And we can see that pretty quickly we have something that could be conceived as a pretty standard logo. Definitely something that maybe you take it to this level and you go to a designer and say, hey, I was just playing around. Here are some concepts that I've put together. Do you want to take it the rest of the way? Sure. And then here, maybe we want to just finish this up with a few vertical lines to show that motion, or horizontal lines. Let's see what comes through with wind. And now we're taking that initial concept that had that tail wagging and adding that back in here, right? But it's more centered on our total design. We'll call this, for the sake of this workshop, our logo. One thing that I don't love is putting those page views behind it. They become floating elements, so I generally will delete those. But if we group this together, I can now download this selection. And we have our logo. We have our color palette over here. We have our fonts over here. And now let's take a look at some imagery. So this is where I go back to our inspiration site. And we're seeing some obviously adorable pets. Any adoption agency should have that. There's some humans engaging with animals on here, and we have some of these graphic treatments of animals as well. So let's come up with a similar image suite that is going to take us into different elements, which is true photos. So pet with vet. I mean, this guy looks pretty happy. Both the human and the dog. I was first saying the dog. Let's go into cat with woman. This looks pretty great over here. Very happy cat. Looks like they could be a little bit older. Let's do some puppy and kitten. I'm going with some of this like soft focus in the background. This is kind of mimicking some of the imagery that we have here. You can see that the vet is a little bit blurry. The dog is in focus here. So drawing from those inspiration sites to pull together a cohesive look is a great way to go about your image search as well. So we wouldn't necessarily choose one of these with just a white background unless there were some textures and layers to that. So like this one, I don't love. This cat's head, but we're getting some of that foreground background view. Here's another one that might look a little bit better or more in the same design realm that we are looking at. Let's go into, really quick, I'm gonna delete out a few of these frames. And let's recreate something like what we are seeing here, which is this cat coming out of this background image, or this dog overlapping from the background image into the foreground. To do this through Canva, we're gonna first start with a circle frame. We have many an option down here, and if there's one that feels like it might match our aesthetic, we might wanna add that color border on it that we can bring in some of our brand colors. We're gonna go here, right? Then we need some sort of animal to go in that box. If we take a look at our cat photo, let's say this is a pretty good one to go with for now. We're gonna put that cat photo in here. We're gonna size it where this nice kitty dips over the edge. And then from here, we are actually gonna take that same photo, click on our edit photo, and we're going to remove that background. So there's all of this background in this image, And one of those magic tools with a click of a button gives us the ability to remove that background. Now we have a floating kitten. And this is where, even though, because it's a frame, it gets a little bit hard to manipulate. But if we go into just the ears and we right size our picture to the graphic below it and use our cursor or our arrow keys versus our cursor, when we use our arrow keys, it won't fit the frame, or it won't take the shape of the frame below it. And then we're just going to right size that cat pretty close there. We can zoom in and see that line, but we've now gotten the ability to take that cat out of that background image into the foreground, just like our inspiration photo over here. And that's again using that background remover magic edit tool. Now from here, we can bring in a pop of our brand colors. Say this is where that yellow comes in, because it's just that thin line around it. Pretty quick, painless, and easy. And say we wanted to export that image as a standalone graphic. We're just going to highlight this guy, right click, and download that selection. For the sake of time, I am not detailing things to the level that I would detail them if we were going to be using these actual graphics, but we are getting the concept here. Now we can float this cat into our other designs. We're creating some of that layered texture over here, completing our design work. And here are some great images for us to start to consider using for future designs as well. So this basically takes us through a big part of our brand concept. If we go down here, we have some mock-ups, which we might come back to later if we have time, but we, in essence, have a logo. We can render this logo in horizontal view or vertical view. Now that we have it this way, let's just come up with that horizontal view. In this version, we are going to take away this. We are going to not use our curved text. We will put tails over to the right. And down below it, we will put our adoption center. This looks like it is bold. We will bold this as well. And one thing that might be nice to do just for weighting purposes is to make this basically fall on the same planes, where the start and the end of these picture or this text falls in the same spot. So our edges are lined up here. This is a design trick to just balance out your logo. And we have our horizontal logo as well. Great. All right. So I'm going to download this. I'm going to download this. We'll come back to the colors. Let's download this. There's method to downloading them individually, and it will all make sense in just a second. Here's that trick. Because this is just a single image, it is not allowing me to download that. So if you remember back from what we said earlier, the trick is to add a second element to that same image. Since this is transparent, we just want to make sure that this is moving in the back using our shortcut command in the bracket. Now, because we have both of those, I'm able to download that selection, which means we'll have to quickly do that same thing to our other elements here. And move those back, move this back, download and download. and then we're done. All right, let's take a look at our checklist of what our objectives are. We have 15 minutes. We've created a logo. We've defined our brand standards. We aren't quite at this stage of deploying the brand kit, but that's where we're headed next. And then we get to deploy graphics and flyers. So if we head back to our homepage, over here in the left-hand side is the brand. And this is an important tool. It is also one of the premium features. But again, if you're sharing that one license, everyone has access to all of the brands. And because of what eGuide does, you'll see that we have a lot of brands created within our brand center, but we're going to create a new one now. And this is called our brand kit. And what we are basically doing by filling out this section is saying, what are the standards for all of these Tails Adoption Center designs, colors, fonts, graphics, logo moving ahead? And how can we incorporate that into other Canva designs as we are trying to quickly create social graphics? So let's take a quick look here. This is going to be Tails Adoption Center. And we have the option to now upload some of those items that we've just downloaded. So let me just move a few things to my desktop to make them easy to use. Here's our circle logo. Our horizontal logo. This is where we can have multiple designs up at once. What the magic tool is doing is it's pulling from these graphics and saying, hey, these are the colors that you're using in some of these images. Do you want to incorporate those into your overall color palette? Because it's black and white, no, we do not. But we do want to build out the color palette in this because we've defined it already in our brainstorm board. We just pop open that design and we take a look at our colors here. And one thing that I wish it was done a little bit easier is getting to this hex code for these colors, but we are going to quickly copy and paste those in the same order they appear in our design here. I say quickly, but ultimately, comparatively to the old way of having to use an eyedropper or having some sort of reference document, it's all in the same program, all in the between two tabs. It's really much quicker than it used to be. Here's our secondary colors. And our black and our white, which aren't true black and not true white. And the last one, and these will be our brand colors now in our brand kit to use in future designs. And same thing with fonts here. So we know that Droid's Sans is our font for our headers, or Droid Serif is. We can identify when we're using this as a heading, we want it to be this size, and or we want it to be this color or bold or whatever have you. That gives that our subtitle. Let's continue to do Droid Sans here, or Droid Serif. Our headings, let's use Montserrat for this. Let's call our headings bold. Let's call our subheadings not bold, and let's call everything else just standard Montserrat as well. Helps if I click on the right one. Our quote is going to be Montserrat italicized, and our caption is going to be Montserrat as well. We've just basically said, here's every type of font in all of its weights and use cases that you can deploy for future designs. And you'll see that come to life in just a moment. If you have custom fonts, you are able to use the brand kit to upload custom font files as well. So that's an OTF or a TIFF file, I believe, are the two font files. You can use this manage uploaded fonts, and that can become part of your brand kit. So you can then deploy those for future designs as well. So that question comes up a lot for us of how can you upload custom fonts within Canva, and it's done right here. This brand voice is basically the parameters that go into that magic text editor. So this is your ability to coach Canva into further realizing the voice of the brand. So is that something that is friendly, approachable, kind, caring, compassionate? All of those would go into this adoption center. So let's do exactly that. And you'll see a little prompt here to describe your brand's unique personality and how you communicate with your audience. Your voice is important. And for example, that might be our voice is confident, casual, and friendly. Let's just use that and say our voice is kind, compassionate, and caring. We use a relatable tone that is casual, yet still professional. Save that. We can go up to 500, so you can include a little more coaching into that. But you, in essence, are creating that coaching to be a part of your brand kit each and every time you want to use that magic write tool. Photos, same things here. We just created all of our photos, so we can start to upload those. And this is a drag and drop tool, so I should be able to do this right from here. And we're going to call our cat graphic with the 3 dimensions a graphic. We can deploy some icons as well. If we have time at the end, that's the last feature in this brand kit, but this is plenty for Canva to start to work on. Now, why have we done all of this? Because the last 2 objectives that we have to do in 10 minutes is design social and design flyers. So let's, now that we have this brand kit in action, create a new design. So in here, we want an adoption event. This graphic looks great. So let's go with this for a social media graphic. Now, this is not our colors, it's not our graphics, it's not our logo, so on and so forth. However, because we've programmed in our brand design, we can go into our styles here and we can choose from that Tails Adoption Center, select that brand kit, and then click on our fonts and our color palette. And this will update this design in as many iterations as we want, pulling from those brand graphics. Same thing here. If you want a pet, don't buy from the store, adopt from a shelter. Let's use this to rewrite this in our brand voice. Choose adoption over purchase, why you should get your pet from a shelter. A little bit more professional. I can see where it's going. You can play around with this a little bit more to see what comes up. So this is in our brand voice. So I went to our brand center right here. I am able to generate in this brand voice, and this gave us a little bit more copy, but this might be usable. Let's take a look. Choosing it to adopt a pet from a shelter means you give a second chance at life to a furry friend in need. Not only will you be providing a loving home to an animal who deserves it, but you'll also be making room for more animals to be rescued. Find out why choosing adoption over purchasing can be one of the best decisions you make for your new pet. I might use some of that, get rid of a little bit more. This sounds like it's a bit more in our brand voice. Make that basically fill the same spot that other caption did. Maybe these graphics don't apply, but maybe we want that wind graphic from before. Here's that previous search we just did. We can drop in this line, rotate this guy a little bit this way, make this our brand color, have it sit behind the text, and I'm just going to reduce the transparency so we can read the text above it. Have this continue vertically so it is drawing your eye from left to right. We're going to delete our logo and replace it with ours. Brand, with a click of a button, our logo is exactly where it needs to be. This has a background on it, not anymore. And one of the other fun tools that I love to deploy is basically called this duotone. And if you do a custom duotone and make both of these the same color, so let's see what this hex is here. If you make this that same color, it's going to change the entire color of the logo. So this downplays that a little bit. We can crop that over. Now we have this specifically for our design in the color that matches the design. Maybe this dog, he seems like it's already fitting our brand scheme. It has a blurred background in the back. Here's our information. We're good to go. Last 5 minutes, we have a flyer that goes along with this social media post. How do we get there? Well, all I need to do is click on the magic switch up here. I can go into print products. I can go into a flyer and continue. It'll re-render this so that it's fitting the flyer size, and I can copy and paste that into the flyer size here. With a little bit of a manipulation, just size-wise, I'm just going to take this off the edge, move him a little bit up here. This font is probably a little bit smaller than we want, so we're going to make all of this a little bit larger for our flyer and extend these. Let's change our line. We might want to add more contact information down below, but in essence, we've just created a flyer as well. Now, we have a whole 4 minutes left, so we may as well make another design. What if we need to do some sort of presentation deck that is in our brand colors, right? So let's go into our presentations. Let's not start a new design. Let's say a pet adoption presentation. What comes up? Here's one. It has 15 pages in it, right? This one is a little bit closer to our brand aesthetic. Let's use this one instead. Customize this style. Same concepts apply to a multi-page document. So let's add in a few more of these pages. And we're in a completely different color scheme. But some of these design elements, here's that are like 3-dimensional dog. And right back here, let's just get all of those in there. And in our brand, we should be able to deploy this color scheme in the same fashion. Styles. Great. Fonts adjusted. We go page by page. Updating as we go, taking the inspiration of the design, applying it to our color scheme, and in essence, creating this entire template within a fraction of the time that it would take to deploy a new template for our organization to use for any presentations they have to give. And that is the magic of Canva. Questions?
Well done. I learned some things.
Great. That was the whole point.
So nonprofits can get Canva for free, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Any other questions on the call? It's like people are hopping off. Well, thank you for the time, Gregory. I am going to stop recording.